Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about some of the authors that I need to be reading more of. I did a video, depending on when I released this video, a couple of weeks back, about fantasy and sci-fi authors that I need to be reading more of. I had one rule, and that was focusing on authors whose books I've not read any of. But this time I'm actually going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to be focusing on kind of classic authors. I haven't really used a defined criteria for that. They're just kind of authors that consider to be classics. I don't know. That's pretty much it. So you may or may not disagree whether they are actually a classic. Let's not get too pedantic about it. So I'm actually going to do a mixture of authors that I've maybe read one or two of their books, but I want to be reading more of, and then authors whose books I haven't read any of. But I will let you know as I go through. So let's jump right in. The first author is John le Carré. John le Carré is an author that I've heard a lot about. You know, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is kind of one of his kind of most well-known works. They did a movie based off of the book, and you know, it did very well in the cinema, in the box office. I haven't watched the movie because I really want to read the book before I watch the movie, but I've heard really great things about his ability to build tension in his books. And tension is one of those things that I think is incredibly hard to do, but apparently he does it incredibly well. I also love kind of espionage thrillers. I've not read many, admittedly, but the few that I have read, I've really enjoyed. And John le Carré apparently is like the father of that. It kind of seems like a no-brainer that I have to read some of his books. I do own Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and that is definitely the first one that I will start with. Assuming I like it, I'll definitely pick up more. The next one is an author that I've actually read a reasonable amount of his works, but I just want to read more, and that is John Steinbeck. I've read Of Mice and Men, I've read Grapes of Wrath, which is one of my favorite books, and then I've read East of Eden, which is another one of my favorite books. I have Winter of Discontent. I haven't read it yet, but my brother loved it and he thinks I'll love it as well. And the thing about Steinbeck is his books are really raw and real. They don't glamorize the human experience. They're very sad, they're very touching. They're just about real people living their lives and trying to do the best that they can. And those are the types of stories that I love reading, because that's the nature of the world, right? That's the nature of reality. Is I think most people are generally trying to just do the best that they can and get through each day. And I think Steinbeck captures that incredibly well. His books, for me, I have to be in a very particular mood to read his books, because I have to be in the right headspace, because they can be quite, not depressing, but they do have that kind of edge to it. You know, I definitely want to read more, but I need to be in the right headspace. The next one is an author who has written one of my favorite books, and that is Alexandre Dumas. I have done a whole video talking about The Three Musketeers, which is one of my favorite books of all time for many reasons. Admittedly, I actually just need to read more of his works. I own pretty much all of his other books, especially set in the D'Artagnan romances, which encapsulates all the books about the Musketeers, but I haven't had a chance to really get around to them yet. I've read the two that are set after The Three Musketeers, and I loved them both, but there are other ones that are set after that. And then there's a whole bunch of other kind of books that he's written that I haven't really gotten to yet. Dumas is, you know, he's one of those authors that I have a feeling that the more I read his books, the more I will just love everything about him, because I think he provides a very unique perspective, especially given his own background, that I find super fascinating. But Dumas is one that is always kind of on my radar, and I'm excited to definitely read more of his works. The next one is one that I'm a little bit nervous, and that is Murakami. Murakami, I believe, does a lot in kind of magical realism. Correct me if I'm wrong down below, but I'm not really into magical realism that much, but I've heard so many great things about Murakami. I own a couple of his books. I own Norwegian Wood, which I think is one of his most famous ones. I mean, I don't really know what to expect going into it, but I'm excited either way. If you've read any of his books, please let me know down below, like, you know, whether you liked magical. I'm particularly interested in people who didn't necessarily think they would like magical realism, but then they went into it and they really liked it. I'm super curious to hear your thoughts, so please let me know down below. Next one is Cormac McCarthy. Cormac McCarthy has got to be one of my favorite authors. I've read No Country for Old Men, and I've read The Road multiple times. Again, his books, similar to Steinbeck, but maybe taken to another level, they're just so gritty and depressing. I mean, his books are depressing and there's no hope. I feel like his books show humanity at their worst, but then he shows these like very little slivers of like hope, and you kind of grasp onto them as much as you can because you just don't want to be depressed. His books are phenomenally written. I mean, I love the way he writes, the way, you know, he doesn't have speech marks when there's dialogue, and it's very simple but very effective, and it packs a punch. The Road is definitely one of my favorite books in terms of kind of classics. I've got Blood Meridian, which I want to read at some point this year. I don't know if I'll get to it, but I definitely want to try and read it this year because I've heard really brutal things about it in a good way. Like, I'm just really curious to kind of see whether it will gel with me. I mean, his other two books have gelled with me, and I have to say this is one of those rare instances where the movies actually amplify the experience of the books. Like, read the books first, then watch the movies, and then go back and read the books, and it will amplify that experience for you. All right, we've got 3 more to go. The next one is Charles Dickens. So I've not really read much Charles Dickens. I think I read Oliver Twist when I was younger. I genuinely don't remember much about it. Most of what I remember is from the film. I have the kind of Barnes & Noble leatherbound where it has 5 of his main stories. I also have A Tale of Two Cities. My brother, whose book opinions I really respect, said that A Tale of Two Cities has one of the best endings in any book that he's ever read, which is high praise from him. It's one that I want to get to soon. The thing about Dickens and the way that he writes, I have to be in a very specific mood to be able to read that way of writing, because it is quite, it's not that it's hard, it's just different. It's different to what I'm used to day to day. So I need to kind of find a time where I'm kind of ready to kind of digest information in that way. I mean, Dickens is a classic for a reason, right? Like, his books, again, they are very human-centered stories. They feel very real. They're not tackling the nicest of topics, but again, that's the reality of the world that we live in. Next to, so this author, I've not read any of his works, but I do own one of his kind of books that he's most known for, and that is Larry Mcmurtry. The reason why I want to read Larry Mcmurtry is so he has played a huge influence in Joe Abercrombie's works, who is my favorite author. Larry Mcmurtry's Lonesome Dove in particular has played a role in, I believe it is Heroes, which I recently just finished, and I'm just kind of curious to see the kind of similarities between the two authors and how Joe has taken inspiration from Larry Mcmurtry. I will read anything that Joe Abercrombie recommends because he's Joe Abercrombie. And yeah, I'm super excited. It's a mammoth of a book. I think it's like 800-900 pages. I think Charmaine and I are going to try and read it together. I don't know if I just made that up, Charmaine. Sorry if I did. I think his books are quite similar to Steinbeck in the sense that they're quite slow, but they're centered around, you know, real people going through real struggles and how they kind of get through them. So super excited for that. And then the last author I'm going to talk about, I'm not really sure if you can consider him a classic. I don't know. Somebody tell me below whether you agree whether he's considered like a classic. But Bernard Cornwell, I've read, I feel like he's very beloved, and I feel like his books are kind of, some of his books are classics. I don't know. I feel like I'm stretching a little bit here, but let's just go with it. I've read the first 5 books in the Last Kingdom series and I love them. I blitzed through them super quickly. They are addictive, and I need to read the kind of most recent ones. Bernard Cornwell just has this really fantastic ability to create stories that you've heard about but making them feel very real. I just need to read more of him. I've got the first book in the Arthur trilogy that he has. I forgot what it's called. The Winter King. I'm super excited to read it because I love a good Arthurian retelling. Arthur and Merlin is kind of one of my favorite duos, and I loved the BBC show so much. I've watched it way too many times, but no shame here. I will own that decision to rewatch it and rewatch it and rewatch it, and I will continue to do that till the end of time. I love a good Arthur retelling. I think it's a story that is about honor. It's a story about many different things, but ultimately about honor, and I love that. Bernard Cornwell, I need to read more of his stuff. I know he's written a lot more than that. He's written quite a few stories. He's definitely one that I need to pick up more of. So there you have it. There's a couple of authors that I need to read more of, that I'm planning to read more of. Let me know if you read any of these authors, or if there's any other authors that you recommend based off of what I've put in this video. But otherwise, let's take it down to the comments. Super excited to chat to you all about any of what I've just talked about. I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.